Okay, before I put this in the cabinet, I thought I'd make a little video to add on to the other one, showing what I came up with finally to mount the Vision Pro monitor on the K7000 monitor frame. So the Vision Pro has these plastic tabs that stick out. The PCB is mounted in a plastic frame, and then it has these tabs with screws, and then this, I don't know what the heck that was designed for, but that plastic thing, there's nothing inside of it. It doesn't house anything. Nothing goes in that hole. I don't know what maybe that's part of the manufacturing process, helps having that on there. I don't know. But yeah, it was too wide to fit on the metal plate from the Double Dragon K7000 frame. So what I did, you can see that there's a ground wire that goes to there. That's in the original place. Ground wire goes to the screw, and then it goes through the metal. That's where it was originally. What I did on this side is where the power comes in for this monitor, which these don't need an isolation transformer. That's beside the point. You've got your hot and your neutral lines, and then a ground. The ground, I drilled a hole here for the ground because there wasn't one here in the front of the plate. And then I drilled holes here and here, so these tabs are within the margins of this, so they'll fit inside the rest of the frame. And then I used these screws, one of these screws, I used a 1/8 inch drill bit to drill the holes in the metal, and then used these screws and a screwdriver and made them thread their own threads into the metal. And so they are in there, they're firm, they're not stripped, they're in there great. It's just like factory. Same thing with this one, this ground. Now, again, this was mirrored on the other side. So what I did here, as you can see, it wouldn't fit. Obviously, I cut off that plastic tab. I cut this one off, which looking at it looks like it might be just a little bit too far out. I might have to get the Dremel and just cut a bit of that off. It's probably fine, but so then I had the problem here. What do? I don't want to just have it secured on the left and not on the right because it would flop up and down. So it has the same plastic, round, unused piece of plastic with a hole in it here. So I drilled another hole there and used one of these sheet metal screws, like you see in a lot of arcade cabinets that secure tie downs to the side of the cabinet that route wiring and things like that. This is a longer one. It goes almost to the bottom of the plate, but it fit through this plastic piece that I cut off, but you can see the hole is still intact. So cut enough to clear but left the hole, and then screwed that down so it threaded its own hole. And that's where this ground wire that used to go here, just like the other side, it used to go from here to this mount point to be grounded. It goes up here to that screw to get grounded. So now all 4 points that were grounded to the frame are still grounded to the frame. And it's got 2 screws in one side and 1 in this side, and it's not going anywhere. That thing is in there. And apart from this little tiny bit I might have to shave off here, I didn't quite get just right, this plate will still slide right in to the rest of the frame, where it will bolt here and here. And the other side, which was a bit of a worry for me, as you can see, this screw's coming down pretty close to where this screw is going to go in. Same here. That one doesn't look nearly as bad, so I probably could have moved this up a bit, but I tried to center basically the holes that I was drilling, this hole here and the other one below it, so that they wouldn't interfere with the screws that go through the rest of the frame into this to hold this bottom piece. And it should be fine. These screws should not interfere the way they're poking down with these going in. But luckily I checked that, because if I move this a little bit this way, this one would block it, and if that one went that way downwards, it would block it. So I had to get it just right. That's why it's not quite flush with this plate, but it's only sticking, I mean, you can see it's only sticking out like, you know, whatever, a 1/16 or whatever. Just the basically the width of the thin plastic frame is sticking past the bottom of this, so it's not going to have too much additional space backwards that it's going to be an issue when flipping the monitor in or out. It'll clear just fine. I also checked that tall heatsink here. It should be fine as well when this is slid into place with that Vision Pro tube. This should not be bumping up against the tube. In fact, it seemed like there was quite a bit of clearance. So everything, hopefully, should be good to go. Now the connector, there is the degauss connector. There it is, right here. So that's probably going to be, might be a little pain in the neck to connect that. I really don't like where this input header is. This input header is facing the tube. So normally on a monitor, well, I guess some of them have them up here, but I'm used to monitors that have them in the back corner, so it's easier to get to. Like the K7000 is on the back, one of the back corners. In fact, I think the K7000 might have the flyback over here and that input header over here. So just kind of a weird way this was designed with the flyback back on the right, compared to, again, just compared to what I've been working with lately. So this wire should not be in the way, even though it's going to here instead of just up and over there, which again was kind of a dumb design. It came out of here and it goes to here, so it's like a loop over where this signal wires connect. So I was like, why did they do that? I don't quite understand that design choice. But so yes, so I think what I'm going to do, because the wire harness in the Double Dragon is just barely long enough to be able to rotate the monitor, this being further inward just makes that more of a problem, because the K7000, like I'm saying, you connect those wires in this back corner, and so now you've got, you know, this additional amount of space to connect them. I'm going to make an extension. I'm going to make a harness that connects onto this and then terminates, and then the Double Dragon harness will connect into it. And I'm trying to figure out how long I want to make it, and it's looking like probably a foot at least, because this is, I don't know what that is. That's not quite 6 inches or so, I guess, but Yeah, I want to make it so it's long enough so I don't have to worry about, oh, am I am I pulling it too far or whatever. And in fact, now that I think about it, because I never actually rotated this with the power lines, with the video lines hooked up, I'm wondering if in the cab they are long enough to rotate it without pulling them off, because as I showed in my video, the way that you get these out, you can't just pull it straight out of the cab, rotate it, and put it back in. You have to fold the thing down enough to clear the wood blocking to remove the wood panel, and then rotate it outside the cab, and then put it back in the slot at an angle and lift it back up. So I don't even know if the wires were long enough to do that without disconnecting your power and signal wires the way it was stock. It's interesting. But so yeah, maybe I need to just make it like, a good 2 feet just to make really sure. So I'm not sure if I have any more of these connectors. Actually, I want to use the keyed ones because I will be making an adapter. I want to make sure it doesn't come out of here because it will always be in here. In fact, I might run wires for all of these pins just to have them, even though, well, I don't know. I'll have to look at the manual. I'm not sure if one of these is negative vertical and horizontal sync and the other one's positive, but I might just make a 2-foot extension with all of these, and then the double dragon cabinet, it'll connect into with the proper pin out. Anyway, just wanted to show this before I get in the cab, and do it over here because it's an absolute mess in the game room right now, although it's a mess here in my computer / 3D printing / electronics / workroom. But there you go. So Vision Pro monitor in a K7000 double dragon frame. Here's a way that you can do it. Chop tabs off of one side, 1/8 inch drill bit. Use the existing screws to tap there. Get a sheet metal screw from the hardware store, self tap it through here. Connect all your ground lines. And should be able to slide that back in and be good to go. Alright, there it is. Vision Pro mounted in the K7000 frame. Everything fits. Everything is secure. Yeah. So here we've got the remote board, which has contrast brightness, vertical and horizontal position, and vertical and horizontal width adjustments. Fairly long cable. I was planning on making maybe an extension. I don't know how difficult that would be with these connectors, figuring out what these connectors are and having to buy the connector and the pins, and yeah, I'm not sure about that. And then there's the wiring. So here we've got the cabinet wiring. It's got a nice big ferrite block to help eliminate interference on the signal, which is good. And then it goes to this connector with red, green, blue ground and sync. Color's a little bit weird because they're not RGB black, but that's red, green, blue, ground and sync. And then we've got field ground, and then we've got power. What we've got up here is 3-prong power with the field ground attached to the chassis. So I think what I'm going to do is hope I have one of these 3-pin connectors. I haven't looked yet. And then just take this 2-pin connector out and wire up these to the voltage, to the monitor. Cut this loop off, put a pin in it, and then it'll be 3-pin to connect up to the Vision Pro 3-pin. I could make an adapter, 2-pin to 3-pin, but not sure how I'd make an adapter for this other than getting another piece of wire with a loop on it and then maybe screwing a nut and bolt between both of them. That way I could return it to stock. That might be an option. Just not sure if I like the idea of having a nut and bolt holding wires together here, even though it's just a ground. And then the signal wire should be pretty straightforward. If I have another one of these connectors, hopefully you can see that they are keyed. Well, when I say keyed, these connectors okay. It's not actually keyed, but these connectors, if you see this lip, right, and you can see that the holes are closer to the side with the lip than the side without the lip. So they make these connectors with these little locking lips on them and without. So because I'm going to make an adapter, I want to use one with these locking tabs on the monitor so that it will stay on the monitor and not come off. Because it'll probably stay on if I only have one that doesn't have those tabs on it, but it does give it the potential to slide off as opposed to these that are firmly held by the plastic clip that this clips into. So I just need to get a header. I don't think I have one that's got that many pins, so I might have to order a header with that number of pins on it and maybe connector with the tabs on it with that number of pins. And then, like I said, I guess I might just put wires coming from the Vision Pro that are fully populated. Maybe. Although probably not. I'll probably just run RGB ground and sync. And I can add wires later if I need to. So that is what needs to be done. Next is making that adapter and figuring out where this is going to live. It's going to be a thing to remember when I rotate the monitor that I've got this remote board attached. Now the K7000A that was in here actually also had a remote board. Didn't have all these adjustments on it, only had a few adjustments. But if I mount this somewhere, I have to remember to unmount it when I rotate the monitor. Otherwise I might rip it off the chassis there. So I gotta think about that. One thing I might do is, as I go ahead and slide this up, showing that, hey, look at that. Fits. I might just label here. I've seen someone before, I think with a Double Dragon, where they had blue tape and like arrows. So like blue tape here with an arrow pointing up. And then on the vertical side, the same type thing, so that when they come in here to rotate it, they know that most of their PCBs, this is the top, so you rotate it counterclockwise, and then if it's horizontal, this is the top, so that arrow facing up. So I might do something similar to that, where I just put some blue tape on here and write, when rotating, remember the remote board. And you can do anything you want here, like these little chips in the wood, because the wood screws that hold the frame in are long enough that they just poke through. It doesn't matter, because the bezel, the cardboard bezel, covers all of that up, so you don't see any of that. At most you might see, a 1/4 inch around there, if even that. So yeah, we're mounted in there. I need to figure out the mounting for that. That's good. That looks like that reaches all the way down to the fiberboard that covers the area of the slide out tray, so if something falls in the cab, it doesn't go into the transformer or something. So that means that looks like it's plenty long. So I think what I might do, and I think it's what I did in my multi-Williams cab, I'd have to go back and look at my pictures because it's been a while. I think I just velcroed that to the top of the coin box. So you just open the coin door, and then just a little bit of velcro, just enough that you can pull it off, and hopefully it comes out to about here. So yeah, so far so good. Just got to do the electrical wiring. Alright, made some adapters. This monitor already had a 3-pin connector, but it wasn't the same as the ones that I had. I didn't have a matching other side for it. Fillmore was the brand. When I looked it up, I found, and the difference is actually the plastic tabs that keep the connectors together. So they were actually the same connector style, but one of them, this one here, you can see has these wings on the side that latch into the other piece to keep them connected. The other one that was on the Vision Pro has a tab that goes across the top. So I didn't have a mating 3-pin connector for that. I could have used this one, but then the only thing holding these pins together would have been the tension of the pins pushing into each other. So I wanted the safety of having some kind of a plastic latch. So I just cut the pins off, repinned this connector, and put a new housing on it, and made a 2-foot extension. So that extension goes to here. This is the other type of connector that has a safety catch on the top and not on the sides. So this is the one that comes from the Double Dragon cab and takes the AC voltage in. So I just made, you can see the discolored old original one from the cabinet and a newer one that I made here. So that takes the voltage, hot and the neutral lines to the monitor, and then this, I have some single line Molex connectors, and so that's the 3rd line that goes up to the other end of the monitor and then grounds to the frame. This one here, if you remember, these 2 wires were crimped together to a round loop that you could screw into something to ground it. So I just took those 2 wires, cut the circle end off, and crimped on a pin so that it now connects to the monitor. So rather than, I could have cut both of these wires off also and used one of the same 3-pin connectors that I put up top on the Vision Pro, but I figured this is a much more common connector for monitors than what the Vision Pro has. So if I ever swap the Vision Pro out for something else, I'd rather have this type of power connector here than having the special 3-pin one that's not going to probably connect to anything. So that'll allow me to keep this, and then I've got more of these inline connectors, or I could cut the pin off and crimp another, circular connector or something if I was going to change that at some point down the line. So that was easy. That's the power. And what I just did was the signal. Made a signal wire extension. Now, in one of the other videos, or several, you might have seen this connector here that connected to the K7000 was ordered red, green, blue, ground, and then the sync was all the way at pin number 10, the far end here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the Vision Pro monitor, I think it needs sync line on the horizontal and vertical input. So what I've got here is this will go into the Vision Pro monitor, and it's red, green, blue, ground, and then sync comes in, and then it loops over to there. So the sync goes to both the horizontal and the vertical pins. Now, if that doesn't work, I should just be able to pop one of the pins out, and it should be fine. So, but I think this is going to work. Pretty sure. So I just made this. Just finished this half of it, where I used a 5-pin connector because I didn't have a 10-pin one of these that has the locking tabs, because again I'd like to keep these locked in so they don't just wiggle loose if you use the type of these that doesn't have this locking plastic tabs on it, and if you use one of these that doesn't have the locking plastic tabs, they could work themselves loose. So this will help hold them together. So yeah, I just soldered red, green, blue, ground, sync, and I moved the sync wire from pin 10 where it was here up to pin 5 here. So now this plugs in like that, and you've got red, green, blue, ground, sync, and then there's nothing in the 5th one, but I'm not going to chop that off because the more pins you have, the stronger it's going to hold in there. And there's a 2-foot extension, and this end plugs into the monitor. So at that point, as I usually do when I get these things this close to actually testing, I am going to stop for the day because I'm all nervous that something's going to go wrong on the first power up. But yeah, so today successfully mounted the Vision Pro chassis and made 2-foot extensions for the power and signal. And it should just be the final plugging of the signal cable in. I've got the anode plugged in. I have the ground that goes to the neck board, and the other end goes to the DAG wire, the metal braided wire that goes around the tube, touches this DAG, aqua DAG coating. I have the yoke wires that come off of the neck plugged in. I know it kind of looks like I don't because there's a plug there, but I think that was like this when I got it. I think it was like that when I got it from my friend. So it looks like maybe it had a different yoke connector on it or something. But yeah, these wires go to here, and then there's wires that go to the yoke connector that fits on the chassis. So maybe this neck board is designed to work with multiple chassis, and that's some kind of an adapter piece or something. I don't know, but it works. So and then the remote board is plugged in here, and so the ground and power wires, everything is screwed in, so everything should be good to go. Just hook up the signal wires, close up the monitor, put a test board in, and fire it up with fingers crossed that I get a picture and can start playing games pretty soon. as well as figure out what I'm going to do with all this stuff. I did buy a new voltage regulator for this K7000A that I could not get running. It's got a new voltage regulator, a new filter cap, and all new capacitors. Those parts should correlate to the K7000 from Wells Gardner there, chassis over there on the floor. Should. Maybe the voltage regulator might be different. So I don't even know the status of that monitor. When I got it, it looked like the ground wire was not attached to the neck board. So I'm assuming it's not working, but the flybacks for that chassis are available. They're not for the K7000A unless you want to spend a large amount of money. So what I might do, since I've already got the monitor in here, I might just hook the chassis up to this, plug everything in, turn it on, see what happens, see what I get. And then I might transfer the filter cap, all the other capacitors on the board, and maybe even the voltage regulator over to there. And if that one didn't work, it might be a flyback. So I'll just plug it in and kind of see what I get. As far as burn on these monitors, I don't know which one's better or worse. This one it looks almost like Centipede. It's like horizontal lines across the screen. And then this other one, don't think I'm in a position to actually see it, but it has insert coin. Oh, there it is. Insert coin burned in the middle. And then like scores at the bottom. But other than that, it looks really good. So there's more burn in on that one, but it's kind of all over the place. So I don't think you would actually notice that burn as much as you would notice this burn. But this too went with that chassis. And even though what I've read online is the K7000A chassis work with the same tubes that the K7000 chassis work on. This one here is a Samsung, I think. It's not a Zenith, whereas that one is a Zenith. This one's not a Zenith, so I think I'll throw that chassis on there, see if I can get it working, figure out what's wrong with it, and get it working, and look at how it looks when there's a game on it. If it's really noticeable with that insert coin burned in the center of the monitor or not. And I've just watched some of these videos I've made. I'm going to be putting this one together with the other few. And I apologize for all the movements with the camera, since I'm covering the floor and this machine and everything. I noticed they're even a bit more extreme than I usually end up doing, just holding my phone and waving it around talking. So I apologize for that if anybody is too queasy with these videos. But yeah, I'm going to string this on to the other ones, and it's basically just me going through the process and kind of filming the process of here's what I've got, here's what I'm trying to do, and as I'm filming, kind of noticing things and trying to think it through what the final plan should be. And this is what I ended up with. And fingers crossed it's going to fire up. It all fits in there. Everything should be, as soon as I plug in the extension for the video signal, everything should be plugged in correctly and hooked up, and hopefully will fire up.